What is being Latino? Are there certain things that you connect to more? Did you have that within your DNA, or is it what you're, like, you know, how you're raised? Did I pick that up from wanting to pick it up and learning and like putting that on and like putting on that makeup or putting on that suit, or was that something that I'm peeling off layers of, like, you know, this Eugene white world? I mean, like, okay, I'm gonna peel this off and let the, you know, whoever I am from my ancestors come out. What I found is that it's kind of a mixture of both, that I tried to learn to be more Latino, but that's actually what my family was. And I realized that some of the traditions that I'd picked up are part of my dad's traditions that he just never talked about. Both my mom and my dad trace back to Los Angeles. That's where they met. That's where my dad's mom grew up and my dad's dad. My mom's side of the family, her mom is from Colorado originally and has family that go back to like the Dust Bowl and eventually I think like the Mayflower, something along those lines, all different parts of Europe. From my dad's side of the family, his mom is Croatian American, and then from his dad's side of the family, it kind of splits off into two directions. His grandmother, it was from Zacatecas, Mexico, and her last name was Venegas. I think her name was Lidia Venegas. I'm pretty sure they had a corn farm down in Mexico, and it was my great-grandma's father and mother, I think, that were, somebody was trying to kill them back in the time of Pancho Villa. At that point, something happened in the gun misfire, so it just blew out black smoke. And then, you know, the person was a friend of the family. It's like, you know what, we can't, like, get out of here because if people find out that you're not actually dead, then they're gonna come for you. I know she and her brother came on the train and he died of yellow fever, I believe it was, on the way up here. They went to Arizona and lived there for a while, and my great-grandma, I remember she and her husband moved to Los Angeles area because of what was going on with the industry that that her husband was working as. He couldn't advance because of his, you know, his skin color, because of who he was, and so they moved to Los Angeles to find more opportunities and to kind of have a better life out there. I didn't really grow up there per se. My little sister is there right now with my dad, but from what my family is like was really different than in Eugene, is that you have, you know, it's like the whole issue of race is completely different. But here, there aren't a lot of people of color, so if you're a person of color, it's kind of like, well, everybody else is white, so it's like everybody and you. Whereas in Los Angeles, you have so many nationalities, so many languages spoken, so many different origins. You're not singular. There's more people, and it's not just, oh, it's the Latino experience, it's everybody. I know my mom didn't want me to grow up with gangs down in Los Angeles. She used to come up here and visit her dad in the summers when she was little, and knew it was a really beautiful place and applied for some jobs up here and got some, and we moved up. I was 3 years old and I moved up with my mom, and my dad stayed in Los Angeles, and you know, they divorced when I was about half a year old, I think. What I find is that I can't really go back home because I have two homes now. It's kind of like that double, you know, multiple ethnicity thing. I want to be close to those relatives. I want to see my little sister grow up. But at the same time, I really like being in Eugene, and I have my family here. I have my community here. It's kind of a good metaphor for like my racial identity. It's like, you know, I'm not really Latino, but I'm not really white. It's just kind of living in both of those worlds and figuring out how to balance it. White privilege, you know, it's definitely, I get to choose when I talk about being Latino sometimes. When I walk into a store, I'm not followed. Or when I go to order something, I don't have an accent. I look passable. It's kind of, I mean, I don't necessarily like the term, but it's like, it's being in the closet. And it's, you know, it's interesting because people will say stuff around you about Latino culture that you know they wouldn't say if they knew. I remember one day, I just like put on my crab hat or something. I remember going through this phase where it's just kind of like, I wish I were browner, I wish my hair were darker, I wish, you know, I look different, so I could be more Latina. They used to call me the reverse coconut, because you know they have that term for like people who are like brown on the outside but white on the inside. They started calling me the reverse coconut, that it was like, you know, white on the outside and brown on the inside. One thing that I remember is that I always felt like I had to learn to be Latino. I remember the first teacher to pronounce my last name correctly. So I didn't grow up pronouncing my last name correctly. I always say Torres, but it's supposed to be Torres. And I just remember like lighting up. I was kind of like, that's so awesome. And it just like kind of, that was like the first like, yeah, experience of like, that's right. And then I got into high school, and here's Armando, a really strong Latino teacher who was just like, you know, this is what it means to speak this language. This is what the language is. And he taught me about culture that comes with it, the history and all these things. You're just like, dang, being Latino is cool. Like having ancestors from this. I want ancestors from this, and you know what? I have them. Yeah.
And when you bring it together, when you have all of us together, it shows our power in numbers. And that is what we are here to do today. So we're going to do this all juntos, ¿verdad?
I got involved with Mecha because Armando would talk to me about Mecha in high school and be like, Mecha is this great organization. Like, this is what it means to be Chicano. So I joined Mecha in college, and Mecha was a place where we taught each other. It was a learning community with students, with Chicanos talking about what it means to be Chicanos. Like, it was that space where you could talk about, well, I'm not sure I really qualify as Latina, but, you know, what is it? You know, with Mecha, you do cultural events. We do Dia de los Muertos. The Razón y la Youth Conference is another big thing. We do that. For Mecha, I was involved with the Ganas program, which is a youth mentoring leadership program. I wanted to be a psychologist, and then with the program, I was like, no, I need to go into education because I needed to be in this area. So it changed my whole life completely. I work at Buena Vista Elementary School, and this is my first year teaching. What I really love about this school is it's talking about Latino culture in not a way that it's like, oh, look at Latino culture, it's so beautiful, but it's kind of getting more people exposed to it, and it's a really unique perspective when you're working with kids because you can talk from a cultural vantage point that other people aren't talking about. Again, you bring in different things from your culture that play out differently in the classroom.
Vamos a escaparnos juntos, nadie nos encontrará. Cogemos el cosecito y a dónde iremos a parar. Que te quiero.
Getting involved with radio, I wanted to be more around música en español, which I wasn't really getting. I was like, yeah, I totally want to do that. Sure, it sounds great to be on the radio. Like, did it scare the crap out of me to be like, I'm going to speak Spanish on radio? Shoot, like, you know, I don't know if I can do that. But like, here I am, like almost 10 years later. And it's like, yeah, that was like one of the best choices of my life. When I go down to Los Angeles, I have like 5 different radio stations I can choose from that all play like top chart hits in Espanol. And we don't have that here. And so a lot of the Latino community is like, oh my gosh, you know, where's my música? Where's, you know, we talk about things, we talk about events, we talk about different things that are going on just so that the community knows. We're growing so much. People are coming from different regions. People have different issues now than they did 10 years ago. What I see us working more toward is not saying like, I am the representative of Latinos and I'm going to be on every committee and be the Latina. You need to listen. Like, what is it that you need? And not be like, I know what you need because I'm Latino too, so I'm going to help you fight for this. My mom, our values are family. And even though like that's a big Latino family value, but I got that from my mom. She was a single mom. She had short hair. She was from LA. She challenged so many stereotypes in her own way that I think that challenges me to do the same thing. From my dad's side of the family, you know, taking care of each other. I think those are the things that, you know, I kind of have gleaned out of my own family is, you know, the importance of your community is your community and your gente, and you need to make sure that everybody has what they need, because when somebody doesn't have what they need, we all don't have what we need. It's always interesting to see what creates your identity. It's been interesting talking to my dad, and you know, you don't talk about being Latino. You just have your family traditions, and not having grown up with my dad and him not having grown up with his dad, who was, you know, the Latino member of the family, just kind of like how much of a disconnect is there from that in my family. My dad and I really like a lot of the same types of music, and it's one thing that we've been able to bond over. And There is a pressure. There was a pressure to not teach him Spanish. There was a pressure to not identify that way, which contributes to how things have been passed down to me. And we haven't always had the easiest way to connect over the years with the distance and not really knowing each other that well. And I think that's it's kind of the ground where we both connected and got to learn together. Knowing that we can appreciate that now together is really, it's pretty special.